What's up, guys? We have an amazing guest with us today. Her name is Jazmine Duke. I'm going to let you know a little bit about her. Jazmine is the founder of JDE Manufacturing and owner of the luxury bath care line, JD Bath Company. She started her business known for its organic, vegan, and cruelty-free products as a love letter to women. In recent years, Jazmine has expanded her brand to also include products for men, including beard oil. Based in Atlanta, Jazmine spends her time manufacturing skincare for local companies through JDE Manufacturing and selling luxury non-toxic skincare as the CEO of JD Bath Co. Her hobbies include writing, reading, and telling other women they are bomb AF. You guys, welcome, Jazmine.
Thank you. Thank you. That was like quite the introduction.
Yes, I mean, only right, only right. So, welcome. We're so excited to have you. We got to hear a little bit about you, but just, just introduce yourself. Just say hi to the people.
Sure. Hello. My name is Jazmine Duke. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. As you heard from my bio, I kind of do all things clean beauty, non-toxic luxury skincare. I don't know what else. I love sunshine. I'm bummed I haven't been able to travel as much as I wanted to because of COVID. And I like to do puzzles, I think. Like
Ooh,
that's my latest hobby is puzzles online and like on the floor and just doing big like, physical piece puzzles.
I love it. That's unique. Now, do you like frame your puzzles or just scramble them back up in?
That's like a step too far for me,
Right.
I
No,
think.
I know you can do that. So I was like, okay, I love it. So,
I mean, if you're into that, I'm not. I think you should do whatever makes you happy, but I personally just like break them down so then I can do them again later.
exactly. That's the fun part. No, I'm with you on the sunshine. I was just telling Jasmine that I relocated back to Maryland, and it's been an adjustment dealing with this winter weather. But here we are, knocking down
Yeah.
on the days till spring. So you told us a little bit about yourself, but I like to start off with a game called "The People Want to Know" because the people want to get to know you before we hop into these questions. So,
Okay.
saying that the people want to know, are you reading anything right now?
Okay, so don't make fun of me. I because of what I do, the manufacturing, I actually do Audible. So I think I'm on my third or fourth book this month because it's really easy to plow through books when you have them playing in your headphones. And right now I'm actually listening to Midnight Sun, which is the Twilight story, but from Edward's perspective.
Okay. Okay. Well, look, I would have to listen to that on Audible because those books are like this thick. Like those are some big books. So
They are. I've read them so many times.
really?
Yeah, the Twilight series. I am a big sci-fi fantasy.
Okay.
I actually the book I just finished before this was called Mexican Gothic.
Okay.
They're like sci-fi fantasy romance type novels that are acted to author. Her name is Sylvia. She has like all these books, but they're really her character development is very advanced. It's just incredible. So I've been really like just eating up her books like crazy. So, but yeah, I'm a big sci-fi nerd.
Oh my gosh, my cousin Shay is going to be so excited when she hears this interview because she used to read me like chapters from Twilight. Like she's
Ugh.
obsessed. So obsessed. Are you thinking about writing? You were saying some stuff there made me sound like you might be a writer.
So I have written three books, I
Oh,
think, to
okay.
date. I published one a few years ago and decided I kind of didn't want to do it. And so I've retired the publishing. And now I'm just focused really on the skincare manufacturing. And I always thought when I retired, though, that
Yeah.
I would hold up in a cabin in Montana on Flathead Lake and finish. I have a book that I wrote a long time ago about a mermaid that I've always wanted to publish. And
Okay.
I think when I retire, that will be like my retirement thing is I'll actually finally finish and publish that book.
I love it. That's a great idea. Okay, the next thing that the people want to know, what's heavy on your playlist right now?
What is heavy on my playlist right now?
Check it
Now
out.
I have to look. So I like the 90s.
Same.
I'm such
I
a
don't.
90s gal. Like, I just don't think they've created anything great since the 90s. Is that like,
No,
is
like
that too
honestly,
far?
my whole playlist is like 112 and like all 90s. So I am with you.
My most played song right now on Spotify is actually Tay Money Self Made.
Tay Money Self Made. I have to look. I'm sure I've heard it, and I just don't.
That's not 90s. That's actually a new song.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm
I feel kind of hip right now.
like I'm listening to what the kids are listening to.
Yeah, I'm down with the kids. I'm on TikTok.
Right. Okay, so last thing that the people want to know, what movie have you watched over and over again? Like you can recite all the lines. What is that movie?
Well, I won't say Twilight since that's kind of like apparent at this point. The First Wives Club.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a great movie.
I love it. Okay, awesome. All right. So the people, they know you now. They know you. Let's hop into the interview. So, Jazmine, tell me why luxury bath care? What led you down that route?
So it's like a bit of a sordid tale, I guess. I think, you know, you end up places because of what's the word? Like because you have to, not necessarily because you chose it. And that's how I feel about ending up in this space. So years ago now, I was struggling with chronic yeast infections.
Mm.
And it, you know, for anybody who's struggled with yeast infections or BV, it's very frustrating. It's very uncomfortable. And your resources to try to solve that problem are actually not great. I think at least now we're starting to get to a place where education, resources, people to talk about it with to try to get some like community knowledge is better. But this is probably about 5 years ago now at the time. I'm really struggling and I'm seeing OBGYN after OBGYN after OBGYN after OBGYN. And nobody is helping me.
Wow.
I mean, I'm pretty much getting like you know, chin up buttercup type like speeches.
Mm-hmm.
Not like there's a problem with my body, not like there's a problem happening with me. Just, well, this is what it is, you know, buck up, you know, deal with it. And I'm like thinking to them, you know, I'm trying to get somebody to care about the fact that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. And I'm doing everything, you know what I mean? Cotton panties, don't sit in wet, you know, what are, you know, the whole, what are you washing your clothes in? The soap, I mean, I'm doing everything. I've always had sensitive skin, sensitive body. Like and my mother's very sensitive as well. So I grew up in a household with somebody who knew how to, you know, help you along with these sensitivities. And so we were always really careful with everything, like to the point where I still throw out my underwear after 6 months.
Okay.
Like I'm one of those people and I know my body's sensitive, so I don't even play. So I saw this OBGYN and this is like my fourth one. Now, by the way, this is like very expensive, right? Because they're specialty doctors, which I'm like, how is this a specialty?
Yeah.
This doesn't feel
this is
special.
a necessity, right?
It doesn't feel special. Like,
yeah.
So I'm on my fourth doctor and I'm getting really frustrated, but I'm thinking to myself, I have to keep shaking down these doctors because I don't have anywhere else to go. Yeah. If they can't help me, no one can help me. And so this last doctor basically said, well, I think it's the baths. You just have to not take any more baths. And I'm thinking to myself, you guys have taken everything. You know, I'm not swimming. I'm not having sex. I'm like, I've lost all sorts of joy. Right. Now I can't take a bath. I was like, so I like storm out of this office and I'm raging, just rage angry because no one's listening. No one's helping me. It's expensive. Like this just and not working. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to figure this out because obviously nobody is. And so I just start doing all this research. And I think that's one of the amazing things about how we live now is like, you can find access to anything. Right. So I start literally going, you know, not women's health. No, like medical research. What do we know about vaginal care? And through this like quest, basically really just prove that OBGYN wrong, I start realizing how messed up the products are. Mm-hmm. I'm like, these products are disgusting. Like you should never be sitting in a tub with a dye and a glitter filled bath bomb. That's so
And we don't think about these things. Wow.
I watch them on like TikTok and stuff, and I'm like, oh, don't put your body in there. Don't put your body in there. Like you're everything you've
One of
got.
the most sensitive parts of your body at that.
Yeah, or even just your skin. Like your skin doesn't want to be coated in whatever bullshit they have in that bathroom.
Right.
So I go on this thing and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start making my own bath bombs. So I do. And then I'm like, now I'm just giving them to people because I'm so freaked out that they're using these other gross products. Now I'm just giving all the stuff out, right? I'm like, just take them. Everybody have one.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm like, well, I might as well start a company.
Right.
So, and I'll actually circle back. So that's how I got the company started. But the yeast infection problem, I ended up solving that. So I'm living in New York at a time, and a girlfriend invites me to a product launch. Product launch is something called Flex. It's a menstrual cup.
Oh, yeah.
I had never seen, I was like 30 at the time. I'd never even seen a menstrual cup. I mean, I knew they existed kind of somewhere, right? But like conceptually, I didn't really get it. And I walk into this room, and Lauren Schulte, the founder of the company, gets on stage and starts talking about how she created this product because she was having chronic yeast infections.
Wow.
So I learned that the chronic yeast infections were being caused by my period. So the blood can knock your pH off. And so basically what was happening was my pH was being unbalanced. And then I'm using tampons. Mm-hmm. And the tampons are sucking all the good flora that your body's sending to the walls of your vagina to rebalance you. So by the time you're done, now you've got a wicked infection. Because your body's too far out of balance, right? Now what? Well, now you have yeast infection. So I'm literally standing at this product launch, and this girl gets on stage and starts telling like my story, and I'm like, holy cow! So I like run to her. Yeah, I like Lauren. So I stop using the tampons, and the yeast infections stop.
Wow! And you started using the cup. Yeah, I use the cup as well, and the same for me. Like, I didn't have the chronic yeast infections, but I'm such a big advocate, first of all, for women, especially women of color, to advocate for themselves, because that happens to us so much, where we tell our doctor what's wrong. They don't know what it is, so they just say it's no big deal. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this isn't right. This isn't normal. But so we have to do.
Yeah, you have to be your own advocate, and you have to push. So then I get into this community of women who, so like they all, I think, have like $1 million businesses right now, which is there's just this really kismet time in my life. So there's an OBGYN who was consulting for Flex that actually then told me, so I was mostly yeast infection free, but every now and again I would get one, and I couldn't kind of understand what was happening. And so that OBGYN actually said to me, cut out processed sugar.
Wow.
So I did. No more problems at all. And then what also ends up happening, so at the time I was doing between 8 and 15 sinus infections a year. And like they were getting ready to like send me to an ENT for surgery and all this stuff, right? Because there's like something's wrong with your sinuses. Mm-hmm. Turns out that white granulated processed sugar, it kicks up your body to create more mucus. Wow. For whatever reason, my body doesn't process mucus well. And so when I have a lot of mucus in my body, it basically just turns into full infections. Gland, ear, sinus. So not only did I solve the yeast infection problem, but I now don't have sinus infections at all.
That is crazy. Because most things, I feel like we're learning this now, can be solved naturally. But we go to the doctor, they medicate us, just try to give us a Band-Aid, And here you are solving multiple health issues, all starting with a yeast infection, but man.
Yeah, and like it's just one of those things where I think it really set me on a course, and it really made me feel like, one, women are left out of the health conversation on so many levels. I mean, we were like categorized as small men until 1968. The research that is done on women is very slight, especially when it comes to things like, like when's the last time they actually made a birth control that somebody feels like using?
Right.
Like it's not because the technology is beyond us, it's because nobody wants to fund it. And that to me is just such, we've been left so far outside of the conversation that I think that really like anchored me into, I really want to do something for women, something good for women. And that is what, so that's why I always say this company really started as
Yeah.
my love letter to women, because I was like, we deserve better and we're going to get better even if we have to do it ourselves.
I love it. I love it because I feel like so many of us go, if men did dealt with the amount of changes that we do with our body, I
Yeah.
feel like every few years it's something new going
Yeah.
on with my body. And if men dealt with those things, first of all, the world would stop, like, because there would
Yeah.
be
Well, everybody
those
would be at
crazy.
home, right?
Right, exactly. I love that. That's such a great story. So you also manufacture luxury non-toxic skincare. Tell us about that venture and how you broke into that industry.
Yeah. So I think it's a natural like progression for somebody like me who's so I guess passion is probably the word, maybe like non refuses to like give up. For me to give the production of the products to another company was just not something I was ever comfortable with. Um, you know, for me, the standard of what I will put in my products, how I manufacture, the cleanliness of the facility, the chemicals I allow in the warehouse, that type of those decisions, you lose a lot of that control when you outsource your manufacturing to another company. And so I decided that even though manufacturing is actually like insanely hard and very expensive, like my CFO was like, please don't do manufacturing, please don't do manufacturing, please don't do manufacturing. And I was like, we're doing manufacturing. Like the machines are like coming off the truck. She's like, don't do it. I'm
You're
like,
like,
we're
it's
doing it.
happening here. Wow.
But I told her, I said, there's just nothing in my heart that can do this another way. If we could do it another way, I would, but there's just nothing in me that can do this another way.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I started a manufacturing company. So, one, I could keep up with the scale of my own business so that JD Bathco could be manufactured in the way that I felt our customers deserve. They're used to a certain standard, and now we're at a quantity level where I can't hand pack everything.
Mhm.
So, I wanted to keep that quality. So, I did. It's also pretty amazing to have a Black owned warehouse in Atlanta, Georgia. Like, just not a story you hear a lot. I thought that was pretty
Exactly.
cool. So, yeah, I started buying the machinery. I launched JDE Manufacturing last year. I bought the warehouse so that I own it, so that COVID can't shut the warehouse down, which is a big thing right now as well. You know, a lot of people who rent space or rent somebody else's building, you now with the global pandemic lose a lot of control
Yeah.
and what they can do with your, you know, with your business. And I didn't want it outside of my purview. And so I decided to just go ahead and pull the trigger and buy the warehouse. And yeah, so now I've been making skincare for other companies around Atlanta, which has been a absolute like labor of love to watch these things come to real life. I work with a lot of other Black owned businesses, which is also just so beautiful. Like being able to produce, Black owned manufacturing. And I have a chemist that also partners with me and she's a Black woman. And then it's just the whole thing is like, it's just not a story you hear a lot either. Like, yeah. So I'll leave it there, but it's been a really beautiful, a very challenging, but a very beautiful experience for me. And, the manufacturing is of more interest to me as well.
Yeah.
My dad teases because I'll like be up late at night, but I'm like watching like YouTube videos of how they make silicone or I just now every time I see something, if I don't know how it's made, I have to find out. I'm
Right.
like, how do they make that? I
Yeah.
need to know.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. That's one of the struggles I have in selecting skincare is I'm reading the back and I don't know what a lot of these things are, right? That are in the product. And I'm always trying to find the most natural, but it's like always something in there that I'm like, what is this? And then I'm Googling, what is that? So
Yep.
to be able to know exactly what is going into your product and to, like you said, to be able to put so many other Black Black businesses, Black women in the position to, be entrepreneurs. Like that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast is like I love to highlight people with that entrepreneurial spirit because I know the work that goes into it and I know
Yeah.
it's a hustle, but it's worth it to be able to, like you said, have that labor of love and to be able to like kind of sow back into your community. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And we have to do it together because the reality is no one's going to put us on.
Yeah.
That no one. I mean, if you look at how funding works and, Black women are left out of so many conversations, out of so many opportunities. And I think one of the great things about being in Atlanta is I'm so deeply connected into Black women doing all sorts of stuff, like who own businesses or, just a myriad of things. And I'm always able to, if you're looking for something, I probably know a Black woman who does it.
I love that.
And I can pipe that. I also, as a side note, I have a brunch series I do called Sisterhood
I
Brunch.
was gonna bring that up. I saw that. Awesome.
So Saturday we had a one, and yeah, I was thinking it's 12 of us, but just connecting and like pulling together and being able to have genuine conversations about, how people have been. I mean, with the, everybody's trying to make it. Everybody's had to pivot their businesses. We've got some of the women have recently had children. Like there's so much to pull together and support communally. Yeah. And so it was really beautiful to have that, to pull back together. And I had so many people hit me up the next day, like I needed that so bad. And I was like, I did too.
Yeah. You get so used to doing everything on your own. And, to a certain extent, that's cool, but we need collaboration, and that's another reason why I do this because a lot of people, they want to do certain things, but they don't know how. But you might know someone who can put that puzzle piece together, reach out to someone who can do the area that you're weak in. And I think that that's so important a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got it. I'll do it on my own. And you're making your life that much more difficult.
You need a village. We talk so much about self-care, and I'm so excited for the self-care conversation to start transitioning into community care.
Yeah.
Because we're community creatures. We live within context of villages on purpose. You should have a village. You should have a group of people around you that care for you, that love you, that check on you, and that you reciprocate, that you can be yourself, whoever that is that day with. That is so vital. And I think we've got this very sickening superwoman mindset of like doing everything solo. And it's not that we can't, it's that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's that we shouldn't. I got sick this year. It wasn't COVID, but I got like this really killer virus. And I'm like getting tested like every day, I'm like, this has to be COVID. This is terrible, right? It actually wasn't. But I got so sick and I literally had girlfriends that were like, we're coming over, we're packing orders. Like, we got it. Like, I didn't even have to ask. I didn't even have to say it. They just knew because they know me.
Yeah.
And it was December, which is the busiest month of the year for retail. They were like, we got you. Don't even worry about it. We're packing the orders this week. Lay down.
Wow.
And like to have that kind of support of a village who just is looking out for you and like brought me medicine, brought me, you know what I mean? Like just really had like my back on me being okay, that it's you really can't put a price on how valuable that is for your just happiness. My life is full because of that,
I love it. Yeah, like you said, community is so important, especially when, for people like us who have moved, to a new city or, I feel like it can be that much more challenging if you're trying to just go out there and grind by yourself. You need to build community. You need to find ways to connect. And I know it can be difficult right now with, the pandemic, but find ways, virtual connections, whatever it may be, because you need that in times like that. You never know what you may be going through and people will show up for you. So that's so awesome. While we're talking about self-care, why do you think that's such a big topic right now? And how important do you think self-care is and just taking care of yourself?
That's a good question. Self-care kind of like blew up like 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet loves buzzwords.
Very true.
Right? It's like
Very
all of a
true.
sudden somebody blogged about self-care and like the internet like grabbed it and
Mhm.
everything was self-care. Um, I think self-care is very important, but I also don't quantify self-care, I think, the way a lot of people do.
Okay.
Like a lot of people will be like, oh, you have self-care products. I'm like, actually, I have self-soothing products is probably a better like, because self-care to me is really, digging into yourself and living a life that's genuinely yours where you care for yourself. Like self-care is going to bed early instead of staying up on the internet because you need sleep. Like self-care is seeing your therapist even though you don't want to face the gunk that's going on because you have to. Self-care is making sure that I feed myself breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, even though I just want to keep working. Self-care is making sure that I shower and, do all the human things that my body physically needs. It's, not having cheese, not having sugar because my body doesn't like them, and
Mm.
having the things that actually are going to feed my body in a healthy way. And I think to me, that's more about what self care is versus this like treat yourself, face mask,
Yeah.
like buy a shirt, like, you know what I mean? Those are self soothing. They make us feel good and we love them. But I
Yeah.
think true self care is really more about doing what you have to do to keep yourself well. And a lot of those things are not as fun as laying in a bath.
Mm-hmm. That is the perfect description. I never heard that, but self-soothing versus self-care are two totally different things. And I learned that I never, I didn't hear that, title for it, but I learned that myself recently is like I'm doing things to try to make me feel better, like to try to make me feel
Mhm.
good, but not necessarily getting to the root of why I was feeling bad in the first place, And
Yeah.
I know there I recently started therapy and I know a lot of it is coming from that, stirring up some of the, like you said, the gunk
Yeah.
that's inside. And okay, let me go watch something funny so I can just get out of this,
Yeah. Because
like
that hurts.
and
Therapy is
it's
a lot of
like,
work.
yeah, and it's like, no, this is part of the process. This is true
Mhm.
self-care, like it's not
Yeah.
always gonna feel good, but it is good for you. I might
Yeah.
prefer to stay up all night and watch movies, but no, you need to get to sleep because you have a busy day tomorrow. So
Yeah. You need
that's
the rest.
fair. That's good. How do you
Also, aftercare. Sorry, one more
yeah,
plug. Aftercare. So I'm a big therapy advocate. I've been in therapy for a long time.
mhm,
I've been at the same therapy in Atlanta, a Black woman, of course.
mhm,
Like everyone I think I work with, the woman who manages my money, my doctor, everybody's Black women. Which is so beautiful. Atlanta is a gorgeous place.
it
Um,
is.
but aftercare is also a big thing.
Mm,
So like after I have therapy, I give myself aftercare and it looks different. Sometimes there's a really nice Home Goods right by my therapist's office. So sometimes I go bum around and just like aimlessly look at stuff. Sometimes I sit in the sunshine. Sometimes I take a nap. Sometimes I, whatever, but I always buffer myself after therapy for aftercare so that I can care for myself for whatever we did in that session, whatever I brought up or processed or, so I have the space for myself instead of trying to like, shove therapy for 1 hour and then shove myself into the next thing.
yeah, that's really, really good. I think that's so key. I had a friend say, before you do anything after your therapy session, just stop and journal. Like, how are you feeling? What are
Mm,
thoughts in your head? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Cause I would do that. I'm like, I'll schedule it right before work and then I'll go to work and you didn't even digest everything that you just
yeah.
learned, felt, so that's
You're like, let's pack that away and get back to this
yeah,
over here.
exactly. So that I can feel better. That's not self-care. Okay. That is
Yeah.
not self-care. So how do you feel or how do you see men responding to that word self-care? Do you feel like that is something that they're embracing more?
A lot of the men around me do. I think I have a group of very good male friends. And so almost all my male friends are also in therapy.
Good.
So I think the kind of like class of men around me is also maybe a little bit different than kind of the general population. But I tend to just attract people who are like on the similar wellness journey because we have a lot in common, right? Um, oh, hold on one second. Okay.
So yeah, I think the men around me take, their mental health and their own wellness, whether that be in how they take care of themselves or how they're processing emotions or getting out of things, habits that have happened to them, or, they were in the military or they grew up in households that were abusive, like really kind of processing through in a healthy way, trying to be better. And so I think the men that are close to me, I know, are very kind of on that same dig deep, do the work type mission as well. But I also know just a lot of general men who like never like want to look at their feelings and just like drink beers with the bros and
that's to separate.
yeah.
Okay, good now. Yeah. And
but a lot of girls are like that. Like I know a lot of women like that too, right? Like I mean a lot of
I used to be that way. I did. Like I, would just sit on top of my feelings and I'm like, hold on, something's not right here. And it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to address this. So therapy has been very real for me.
It's a lot of work. People think it's like easy peasy. You just lay on the couch and somebody's nice to you. And it's like not that experience.
Exactly. Because they are not. Okay.
I mean, I love my therapist, but yeah, she's not always nice.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, it's a lot of really, digging deep, and it's not you just talking and telling them how you feel for the week. It's like, no, let's really get to the root of why, you're feeling these emotions, and you've got to be willing to do the work. If you want to get to your best self, you've got to be willing to do the work, So do you have a skin crush?
Rihanna.
Yeah.
Rihanna's like all my crushes though. Like Rihanna's like legit.
She's the first person that popped in my head too.
I think she does. I'm like so into her. Yeah. So I'll tell you a little funny story though. So when she launched her skincare line, I was devastated. Especially when you're doing something like skincare where it's such a saturated market, you already feel outgunned. And even if you do have a differentiator that's special, like a vagina-friendly bath soap, right? Like I have a great differentiator, I have a great story, like I have all these marketing PR pieces that like, if you just keep pushing and get enough capital, you can be successful. But when you see somebody that you admire so much, like I admire Rihanna just on so many levels. But her humanitarian work, her businesses, her skin, her body, like she's just outrageously talented. So I see her drop Fenty Skin, and I'm like, I just start to cry.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, oh my god, like who is ever gonna buy my product, right? It's out there.
I'm sure you weren't the only one.
So hurt and like, how could she? I love her. Like, so
how did she do this to me?
Yeah, right. I love her. I'm thinking to myself though, I'm like, all right, can't freak out. Don't freak out. Like, relax. If you're called here, there has to be a space for you.
Yeah.
So then, her skincare line comes out, and of course, I'm like in the reviews. See what's going on. One of the things that I never put in my products is fragrances and dyes. And the specific reason for that is because those have skin irritating qualities. African American skin specifically has a lot of issues with irritation.
Yeah.
Right? We get easily irritated by these fragrances and these dyes more than other races do. Yeah. Her skincare line, almost every single product has red dye in it. Really? So all the sensitive skin folks are like, my skin! I can't with this. And so then I start reading through all the ingredients, right? And I'm like, girl, you put red dye in all your... And I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? And this is why my space in the market is still my space in the market.
Yeah.
Because I would never, and I, sometimes I look at the lineup and I think, gosh, everything is like the color profile of my products aren't always as like vibrant as some of the other products, but it's because I just absolutely refuse to put something in it that could irritate your skin.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it made me think like, wow, this is why I'm like belong in this market, is because there are a lot of people like me who need somebody who's gonna never put something like that in a product.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because that's what they need. And just like I'm sure there's a ton of people who also love Fenty Skin because that stuff doesn't irritate their skin.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's always a market for what you're offering. And
Yeah.
I feel like the same thing. Like I grew up with very sensitive skin, and I'm always hesitant about trying something new, you know? And so like I said, I'm reading the ingredients. I'm like, what is this? And then let me find out what it is. So to
Yeah.
hear that there is, you know, an option that is really pretty much like catering to my sensitive skin, of course I'm going to go with that. So there's always going to be an audience for that. What would you say are your most favorite and least favorite parts of entrepreneurship?
Ooh, this is tricky. I believe that entrepreneurship is not a choice as much as it's like a addiction, kind of like the people that I know who are successful entrepreneurs, it's like it's just in you.
Yeah.
I think about sometimes how I worked for tech companies for years and years and years before I started doing this full time. I had like over a decade into management at like huge tech companies. Yeah, I could easily walk into like a very nice, cushy, well-paid benefits, right? And I think about it sometimes, like, why would you not go work where the benefits are? Like, what are you doing? But there's something in my soul that has to do this.
Yeah.
It's just nothing but this would be good enough. And I say that to say, I think one of the amazing things about entrepreneurship is when it works and when you're right and when you have really good days where like, I had a girl recently hit me in the DM. She hasn't been able to use a bath soap without getting a yeast infection ever. And one of my big pitches on the ads is, you know what I mean? No yeast infection after your bath soap. Right. And so she bathed and she's like bought so many products now over the last couple weeks because she's like, this is amazing. It feels good. I smell good. My husband's like all on me. We're having so much fun. I'm like, yes, like that. So that those things like that are like, you know, all the work. Yeah. It's like every ounce of love and like the amount of cost and frustration that it takes to manufacture things the way I do, to watch it pay off and how people experience the products. That to me is like the biggest, like that is the biggest reward. And I think from a personal level, I like getting up and working whenever I want to. Mm-hmm. So I work a lot of hours, which I'm also working on in therapy, is to not work myself into exhaustion all the time. But the flip side is I get to work from where I want, when I want, wearing what I want.
That part.
I take lunch when I want. I go to Miami when I want. Like I get to live very free, or as free as you can, right? Because everything is based around my own schedule. And I like that. I like having my own time to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I think to me, that's what makes me happier. Like working for another person and letting them have my time is very suffocating for me. I hate that feeling. Mm-hmm. So I like that I get to kind of run my own schedule, even if I still work 15 hours a day. For some reason, it just doesn't feel like, I feel like I chose it, which.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like you said, I feel like you're chosen to be an entrepreneur, you know, and I feel like, sometimes I wonder, is it a millennial thing? Because I hear a lot of millennials say the same sentiment, and that like they're just not fulfilled working for someone else, you know. And I know I've dealt with that, where I've just been in the office miserable because I'm like, you know, you only have so many hours in a day, and they say, you know, you put in your time here and then you go home and work on your business, but it's like, man, then you're depleted by the end of the week.
You're giving somebody else your best.
Exactly.
But I also think we're kind of going through this weird time period where everybody has this idea about entrepreneurship that's not very true. I think a lot of people, especially, I hate to say it, but I've had some experiences recently with people working for me who are in their 20s, and they see entrepreneurship as something very glamorous.
Yeah.
And the reality is if you can't do a really great job working for someone else, I highly doubt you could do a really great job working for yourself.
That's good.
It's one thing to be, you know, I was an all-star in my career. and then transitioned over to being a full-time entrepreneur. It's another thing to have never worked in any capacity or had gotten fired from every job you've ever had because your real life is an entrepreneur. Or maybe you just don't want to do the work that has to be done.
Like the work.
Like being an entrepreneur is a lot of work, and the book always stops with you. Everything is your fault. If it worked, it was your fault. If it didn't work, it was your fault.
Yeah.
And that is a very painful lesson. And you can do everything right and still fail. That's another very painful lesson. And so, the amount of capital and energy and drive and mindset that you have to keep in order to be an entrepreneur and really push something and like continually keep yourself afloat, it's not for the faint of heart.
Man.
And it's not particularly glamorous.
Not at all. It's a lot harder than, clocking in and clocking out every day. It's a lot more hours, like you said, because the buck stops with you. So you might, be working on a project and before you know it, 16 hours have passed by. But if you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about, it can not feel so much as work, but it still is work and it's still very tiring. And like you said, you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do what it takes to be successful, And
it's yours. There is no, I clocked out, let somebody else deal with it.
Right, exactly.
We finish this, I go right back to work.
Yeah.
My ad launch this week didn't work.
Wow.
So now I need to go back after we get off this call and go back through all of the ads and rebuild and retarget, because after spending all of the time and all the energy and all the money on those ads, they're not bringing in business like they should be. So that's what my Friday night is.
Wow.
Like
the sacrifice that anyone listening have to be willing to give up. Are you willing to sacrifice your Friday night? Are you willing to sacrifice your money, to invest into your company? These are a lot of things that, like you said, people don't think about. They see the glitz and the glam, business owner, hashtag,
girl boss.
Right. And it's like, child, it's work. It's work. So what would you suggest to someone who has this great innovative idea, but they don't know where to begin to start a business?
Well, if you have a great idea, there's a bunch of ways to do it. You can sell an idea, you can patent an idea. Like there's so many directions. It doesn't always have to be you in your garage doing it. You can sell. Usually those invention companies are scams. I actually had an invention a long time ago that I'd sold to an invention company, and then I ended up backing out because they were charging me a lot of money and I didn't think it made sense. I've lived many lives, right? Like I always have my hands in something. And, you can always patent something and sell it as a proof of concept.
Yeah.
You can you can partner. There's so many opportunities. You can find somebody doing something similar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And partner with them. It doesn't always have to be just you grinding it out solo. And so I think I would just, I think if you really have something, really dig into what you want. What do you want? What's going to make you happy? What is going to wake you up every day and like put pep in your step? For me, I spend the first hour of my day for myself, but after that, like I'm dying to get going on my stuff. Like I wake up ready to run.
Yeah.
Do this. And I think so for me, running a business and running it by myself actually fits my personality and who I am. It makes me happy really well. Mm-hmm. But I think, giving that some thought. And also too, it's like, what kind of person are you? Because if you're going to make the choice, to start a business, a big thing is, you need other people, you need staff, and a lot of how your staff performs is a direct reflection of how good of a leader you are. And people don't want to hear that, but it's true. Mm-hmm. If you feel like all the staff you've had is shit, there's something else is happening.
Common denominator is you.
Something's happening, right? And we've all been there, right? Like I've personally been there. I've definitely not always been the leader that I wanted to be. I've had times where I've made decisions I wish I hadn't. I've there's a lot of growth you go through in being an entrepreneur just by people being reliant on you.
Right.
And having to be, the kind of person who's not leaving a bunch of dead bodies in your wake. You don't want a bunch of people out here like, oh my God, I work for her and it's freaking terrible. Like, you gotta, right? You want to not be that person. And that also takes a lot of growth. But yeah, I think it really all boils down to, if you have to wake up every day for the next 5 years and do this, are you going to be happy?
Right. That's such a good point. Like, I feel like you really have to evaluate yourself and learn your characteristics. Like, okay, is this something
Yeah.
that I might love this idea, but is this something that I can actually wake up and do every day? Or I might, be good at creating, but I might not be a great leader, And so, like,
Yeah.
knowing what you're good at is very important when starting a business. So that's important. And then finding the people, if you do decide, okay, I can go through with this, finding the people who are good at what you're not good at so that the business can actually thrive. That's very, very key. So that's something to think of before you get out there and start, putting all this money into a business and you're not sure if you can actually operate.
Access to capital is also huge. I know everybody wants to quit their job and be an entrepreneur, but I kept my tech jobs for 3 years.
Yeah.
To really just put money in the bank so that full-time entrepreneurship, first just to fund the business.
Right.
And then to buffer myself. So I have a safety net.
You're right. So you can survive. You still got to eat, still got to pay rent or mortgage,
Yeah. Business financials are up and down.
Yeah.
Are. And one of the scarier things about owning a business is that you can do everything right and still lose your shirt. Ads and stuff that, everybody wants to, like, I watch these, Instagram, everybody's an influencer now, right? Everybody's got a multi-million-dollar ad idea. Okay. First of all, the landscape is changing so quickly with the ad tools and the privacy blocking and all of that. No one has all the answers because the landscape has changed so significantly in the last even 6 months, that everybody's having to readjust their strategy and how you target a user, because you can't track. Just for context, the Apple iOS update made it so that people can come and basically purchase from you and you can't track them.
Wow.
So it's very hard now to see where's your traffic coming from. So how do I target you?
Right. If I don't know where you
my
are.
ads, if I have or how do I even know where my money is coming from? If I have a bucket of 65% of my traffic and conversions, I have no idea where they're from. How do I then keep doing that to keep bringing that business in, right? It's like running around with blinders on.
Yeah.
So it's like, especially with like the ad game, everybody wants to get into these ads and they're very powerful when you can get them right. But the cost to getting them right is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Like incredibly expensive. Even at a small scale, this is my opinion, take it for what it's worth. If you want to see if an ad is worth it, you want to be spending about $100 to $200 a day on it. So that you can collect enough data to deem whether it's a worthwhile ad or not.
Wow.
That's one of my standards that I go by. But think about how much money that is.
Yeah.
Think about how much money that is if you're wrong. and now you have to start over, right?
Yeah.
Because you're wrong. So you're like, that didn't work.
Down the drain. Yeah.
That's a lot of money to test a theory.
Yeah.
And so, access to capital is a big determination on whether your business is going to make it. Not how good your idea is, not how cute you are, not who your friends are, like access to capital. So before you decide to just take this great idea and quit your job and jump into entrepreneur, my suggestion would be start your business, keep your job so that you can keep funding. Because that's what's really going to make or break at the end of the day, like getting through tough times like COVID sweeping the world and having to completely pivot your business.
Yeah.
Right? Like nobody could have seen that coming.
No one. Yeah. Yeah, I'm learning this, through investing. I feel like one of the keys to entrepreneurship is willing to lose sometimes, and I think that's what shuts down a lot of businesses, is you lose that money and you're like, okay, this is not for me.
A lot of L's and being able to dissect them.
Yeah.
You got to lose and then sit down and pull it apart and figure out how you lost and why so that you can do better. And that is a painful that is a painful process.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. So many gems being dropped here. So many gems. Because like you said, I think that a lot of people go on social media and they see the glitz and glam of a lot of different things, especially entrepreneurship. And it's important for them to hear the real, from someone who's been through it, because you don't see that side.
Yeah,
People always say you see the highlight reel. It's very true. You only see what's good about it, but you don't see, look, I've lost money. I've had sleepless nights. I've been up. I've put in hours and money and time into, ads and different things, and now I have to start over from scratch. These are some of the lessons that you don't always hear. So not to scare anyone away from entrepreneurship, if you have the guts and the wherewithal to do it, by all means, but definitely know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Just be ready to, and I think the village also just like makes a difference. Being surrounded by people that are also entrepreneurs is really helpful.
Yeah.
They can, they help keep you, because especially if you have people around you who aren't entrepreneurs, I feel like they don't get it. Like my father and I are like incredibly close, but me quitting a profitable job to run business full time is like
crazy.
Grossly irresponsible, right? Right? Like you're an executive at a tech company, you're making good money. Like, why would you just keep doing both? You got your little side hustle. And I'm like, but it just doesn't matter how many times I break it down for him. In his brain, he can't, especially that I think generationally for them.
Of course.
That generation, man, you get that good job and you just hold it forever.
What's that? You get your pension and you're go.
And so, that for me has become very challenging at times, where you've got him speaking, fear.
Yeah, out of love and caring for you. But
yeah. And not because he doesn't think you're capable or any of those things, right? It's just that those are his mindsets that he has. And I have to be careful how I let him talk to me, and I have to be careful what I go to him with, because there are things that happen that it's better for me to actually go to one of my entrepreneur friends, because they're going to speak life into me. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, I think somebody who hasn't traveled this doesn't know how to speak life into you, because the experience, I think, is just a little bit disconnected. And I don't think, again, it's about, malicious or not having good intentions or any of that. It's just this lifestyle is very different than the norm. Yeah. And so you need those entrepreneur friends kind of sit you down and like, listen, pivot, figure it out. What can you sell? What can you, there's always all these side hustles going on that you can also supplement your income with. Like there's so many options on how to make it. And you need somebody who's going to can share that piece with you. Not like that look like, ooh, I knew you shouldn't have done it.
I tell you. Yeah. I feel like, especially people of a certain generation are often going to oppose that which they don't understand, but like you said, such a word, like you have to be mindful of who you confide in, and that's in anything, that's in all stages of life, because what you take in, it really has an impact on how motivated you are to maintain this business, and how successful you're going to be. So like really be mindful of who you confide in.
Yeah, and not even because they're bad people, but just because what they say might not be. You don't need fear sticking in your mind. There's already enough of your own fear when you take the leap. Right. You have enough doubt of your own.
Right.
You don't need other people. One of the things I think too is Black women, we don't get told we're smart a lot.
Yeah.
Especially if you're pretty, for some reason, people think like everybody's like a one-trick pony. Like if you're pretty, you're not smart. If you're ugly, you're probably smart. Like none of these things are really mutually exclusive. The one thing my therapist always says to me, and I never realized how valuable it was until she started saying it, but she would say, you are very smart. Like you are above average in intellect. If anybody can solve this problem, it's you. Wow. And she started saying that to me, and then I started saying it to myself. Yeah. And it really like resonated with me, how much we're not told we're smart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Strong, durable, dependable, loyal, right? A great number two, but smart, capable, like we don't get those words. And so I think when she started saying that to me, it made me kind of inherit how much I needed to remind myself that I'm smart and that I can solve this problem because I'm smart. Right? Because I'm capable. And so that a lot of times when I start feeling that fear, like that's like my go-to.
Yeah.
I'm like, if anybody can solve this problem, it's me.
That's good. Or any area that you're feeling weak in, like I'm organized, I can multitask, all the things that try to get in your head, like I'm just so flustered, I'm so all over the place. Like, no, I'm organized. I can do this. I can make, you have to speak those affirmations to yourself because you will dig a pit for yourself if you're speaking the opposite, if you're feeding into those insecurities. So I love that your therapist brought that up because man, we do that so very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the process of entrepreneurship and how, the ups and downs of money coming in and money going out. What would you say to someone who's like been in it maybe for a few months or maybe even a year and they're not seeing much profit? How can they regroup or how can they stay focused in that season?
Pretty statistically proven, but I'll also just say it's my opinion, is you really, depending on what type of business you're in, but you really don't start to see profit until after your first few years.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is if you started your business a couple months ago, then you should buckle up because it takes a minute to get yourself to that place, which is why I think having the consistent access to capital is so important. Because this is not it, but it really just goes back to that thing of this idea that people want this life because they see the glamour. And most, I believe, I can't remember where I saw this statistic, but most businesses don't start actually making profit until after 5 years.
I've heard that. Yes.
5, like that's a long time to get to profit. And so you really, that's again why you need to be really honest with yourself about why you want this and if you can weather it, because it's not overnight. It's investment, and a lot of times as well. So I mentioned earlier my financial officer was like, I don't think we need to be a manufacturer. And I'm like, manufacturer. Like in the 3rd year of my business, I need to start a separate arm that manufacturing investment is quite heavy. Yeah. It was a lot of money up front to invest, but it had to be done. Yeah. So, but numbers on a spreadsheet, I put more money into the pot, right? Making it a longer tail investment to actually reap. Now, at the end of the reap, do you reap more? Yes. Yeah. But you have to be able to weigh out and ride out that investment time in order to get to reaping that reward.
Yeah, like you said, having the capital is so important, so very important, because you don't want to end up cutting corners because you're running low on capital, and you were able to see a need and despite the cost, address that need. And now I'm sure you're like, I'm happy I made that decision. But sometimes if you're not putting yourself in the position to take on this type of task, then you're doing that. You're cutting corners and you're not giving your customers what they deserve, what you hope for them to come to you for.
You still have that, like, I don't think anybody knows this, except for maybe my parents. When I did, I invested in some automated machinery to pack, and several, like tens of thousands of dollars, right? So it's coming from overseas. It takes like 6 months or whatever. I get everything here finally. And I have a ton of problems getting through customs. Getting things through customs costs money. Getting the trucks, I need forklifts. I can't find a forklift driver. I can't find a forklift rental. So now I'm over budget, right? because all of these things are coming out of nowhere, like, and they're big things. They're, you know, it's the machine itself weighs, well, it's, you know, it's huge problems, like, literally huge problems. And I remember just laying down and crying and think I should have never done this. This was too much. I pushed it too far. I spent all this money. I'm fucked. Like, what did I do? This was a mistake. And I was just so broken down and like scared that I'd done the wrong thing and invested the wrong way and invested a lot. And now I'm in the middle of this like total storm that I have to get through. Right? You just have to get through this storm. You can't just not. I can't return it. It's not a t-shirt.
Spend all this money. Yeah.
So I powered through and I figured it out. It was a very, very hard week. And like when I have hard weeks and like that, I mean, the human stuff goes out the window. I mean, I don't shower. I forget to eat because I just get consumed and like what we're fixing has to be fixed. And I forget about all the other stuff, right? I'm like a mess, like nothing matches. I'm like, was I wearing this yesterday? Like, why does everything smell bad? Like, I totally just lose like grasp of reality. And so my parents know, you know, of course they know this about me because they've been with me forever. So they're like on the phone. They're like, when's the last time you showered? When's the last time you ate? Like, you have to keep yourself together. And my dad said to me, you know, you're going to make it work. You made the investment. You knew it was the right investment. Don't let this convince you of something. You know what I mean? You knew in your soul this was the right move, and it was. It's going to be hard earned, but this was the move, and the only option now is to make it work. Yeah. So make it work. And I was like, okay. And so I did. And then now I have a manufacturing company.
Yes.
And so it's, you know, now I'm happy I did it, but I'll tell you what, that was you have doubts for sure. You have times where you're like, wow, I really screwed this up. This is a terrible decision. Who let me have this? Why am I unattended?
Right. Isn't that funny though that your dad, who was saying go back to your company tech job, was like, you can handle this. I believe in you. Like I think you kind of prove yourself in a way, you know, when you've done the work and you continue to grind in spite of.
He's like, it's too late now. You just have to.
You have to make this work.
You just got to make it now. Like, that's the only choice. Like, it's too late to pull out. It's just survival time. Make it work. And I was like, okay. Like, take a shower first.
Yeah.
Breakfast.
Yeah. Clean up.
Make it work. Wash your clothes.
Let's start there.
Right?
But yeah, this is really, really inspiring because I feel like even though we've kept it very real about the trials, there also are a lot of triumphs, like the fact that now you have your own manufacturing company, which is a big deal, you know, to have, you know, a Black owned manufacturing company, and to have so many other Black companies that you're working with is everything to me. And I just hope that it inspires people to go out there and, you know, put those innovative ideas to work, collaborate. You know, this show is called Name a Better Duo for a reason. Like, collaborate, because you're so much better with someone else than by yourself. Of course, yeah, it's your idea, it's your baby, it's your business, but you need help. Okay, there's going to be some area that you're going to need help in, and so, you know, don't be afraid to just talk to people, network, and, you know, just kind of pick people's brains, you know, and that's again what this show is here for. So I love it. This has been such a good conversation, Jazmine. Let people know where they can find you, your business, the website, all of that good stuff, social media. Share it with us.
Excellent. So my name is Jazmine Duke, Jazmine Duke. All of my socials are actually just attached to my name because I'm very professional like that, I guess. And then JD Bathco, JDBATHCO on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, and the website is jdbathco.com.
Yeah, this has been so fun. I'm hitting over, like I said, I have sensitive skin, so I'm hitting over to JD Bathco once we log off here. This has been so educational. Like, honestly, like the story you shared at the beginning, I'm like, wow. Like, I never would have thunk, but and that's what this is for. There's so many women who are struggling and don't know why, so I'm so glad that you shared your story. I love it.
I also am super open, like if you need somebody to talk to about vaginal care. I have a nonprofit called the Female Condition in Atlanta as well. Okay. And I'm working right now on getting free content online about caring for your vagina, and then also trying to get into the public school system to do some like just general hygiene type, completely free, accessible online, like really just making sure people have the information that they need about how to care for themselves so that they're not left without a resource. But if you do have questions or comments, concerns, want to just talk to somebody, I'm here. Contact me. I'm like the person everybody always calls to talk about their vagina. I'm happy to give any words of wisdom that I can. I know sometimes it can feel kind of embarrassing to reveal your secrets, but if you need an ear, I'm always here.
That's so big. I love that. I love the idea of the nonprofit because there's so many young girls who don't want to talk to mom or don't want to talk to dad or whomever is back home. Like, they need someone, another outlet. So, and they just need the education because a lot of time parents don't have those conversations.
Especially generationally, like we are talking about that generation who didn't have access to, my mom gave me everything she had, but the reality was when I started having some of these problems, she didn't have anything she didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's and having, again, online is like such a powerful tool because people can just access this stuff, right? We're not gatekeeping it. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to you can just read. And I think that's very magical because it lets people have access to things that we just didn't have 5 years ago.
Yeah. I love this. This was such a great conversation. I love what you're doing, Jazmine, and thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. This was good.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. As Jazmine shared, you can follow her. You can go get some of the products because you need them in your life. Take care of your body. Take care of you.
Self-soothe.
Self-soothe, okay? While you're doing some of that self-care, make sure you're self-soothing as well. I love it. I learned a new term today. Thank you again, Jazmine, and thank you everyone for watching Name a Better Duo. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. I am Renée Nicole. Have an amazing week.